working in construction, and I'm based in London. And today I'm here with Nicole Morrison, and she will introduce herself shortly. And we're really looking forward to just sharing some of our experiences and thoughts on the topic today. Nicole, would you like to introduce yourself? Where are you based? How long you've been, and what you do?
Hi, I'm Nicole Morrison. I'm a HSE advisor for the Travis Perkins Group. I've worked for them for 3 years, and it's also 3 years that I've worked in health and safety. I'm really looking forward to doing this session with Louis today.
Fantastic. So yeah, the topic of today is just to go through, well, first of all, before we begin, just a bit of housekeeping, of course, with these technical advancements that we're using, just making sure that people have the right speakers, headphones switched on only when they want to precipitate and take part in the conversation. Make sure that this mute, unmute button is to hand. And the chat option, we will be monitoring messages. Just make sure you caption everybody, or you can do a direct message to one of us. And this session will be recorded for the purposes of sharing with anybody that wasn't available to join today. So yeah, if you've got any questions, please let us know. And just to test the function, would anybody or everybody please put your current location, where you base, where you joining us from today? That would be very helpful, just to make sure that our system is working properly. Oh, Coventry, nice one. Devon, excellent. Surrey, somebody else from London. Sunderland, nice one. Essex, Norfolk, good. Excellent. So that is working. Cool. So I just see we have a few more people joining us. And here we go. Just go back into the presentation. So a quick introduction to what Link and Learn sessions are about. This is something that has been set up by the Future Leaders Steering Group Committee. So Nicole and I are part of this group, and we believe that young professionals like yourselves and people joining the industry need some space just to bounce some ideas and network, right? So the particular interest and focus is on the conversation being open and having access to appropriate information, having a chance to again reach out for any help, and of course highlight any opportunities within IOSH and IOSH as well. So Nicole, do you want to put your perspective into what you think about the Future Leaders so far?
Yeah, I think the work that the Future Leaders Group is really good to put a focus on what we need as individuals starting out in a health and safety career. And it doesn't matter if you're sort of 16 or coming into safety as a second career. And I think it's really good to set up this network where we feel comfortable enough to ask each other questions, but we might not feel comfortable asking someone that's slightly more experienced. So it's a really nice, comfortable space that we can ask these questions that might be perceived as a little bit silly sometimes, and get that feedback from someone who's maybe got a bit more experience than you, but is still new enough to know what it's like to be that new person in the career.
Absolutely. And yeah, just from my perspective, it has been extremely beneficial to meet like-minded people, especially with the current situation we're all in. It's great to have people like Nicole and others in the team to bounce again any ideas, especially any material that's appropriate to reach out to others. So for today, the topic, it just basically is to make sure you take a break for a brain's sake. So there has been a recent study that was published by Microsoft, and it actually focused on digital fatigue. So high levels of psychological and physiological activation, anxiety, and tension have been recorded. The way it was recorded was by applying almost like, if you imagine a helmet out of a Marvel movie onto your brain, onto your scalp, and then that was monitored over a period of time. While you were wearing it, the activity was monitored, and I'll show you some scans in a moment. And ultimately, the three main takeaway points were having a look at reset, or taking a break, in essence, making sure that you take breaks between the meetings. So we all moved towards digital meetings instead of face-to-face, and how essential it is to have a break away from the computer. One of the reasons, which I'll speak about later on, is about our tips and advice, is looking at shorter meetings, or trying to accumulate meetings together. And then going back to point number 2 and 3, looking at the engagement and focus, and then transitioning between meetings as well. So, as I said, these are some colors in terms of brain activity taken with breaks and without breaks. So you can see, I'm not sure how many people on the call, what meetings are you on? So that might be very useful, maybe for the chat. What number or what meeting are you sitting in now, since 8, 9 o'clock, or this morning, this afternoon? So I'm going to put down, this is a 4th one already. So I'm probably somewhere in this region. 1, 1st, 3rd, great. 5th, wow. Okay, so been a few people on a few meetings. Yeah, 3, Emika, good. 1st, great. It's a great balance of not having meetings, or attending the ones that are appropriate to you. That's good. So we can see without a break, going from 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So by the time you're at 3rd meeting, it's almost impossible to focus and engage adequately with the topic and with the people. So if that's compared with these images with a break in between meetings, you can see the brain activity is much lower, and it is in blue colors. So this is just a visual representation of this study. I will, I know there was a question, I will share this, no problem, this study link, and you can have a read if you have a particular interest in this topic. Okay. Oh, so finding a balance. So Nicole and I, when we first discussed a topic for this event, we believe that there is quite a big imbalance, and we're going to share some of our thoughts. So Nicole, over to you. How do you find your balance?
Yeah, so this has been something I've been thinking a lot more about recently, and was why we started talking about this as a topic of discussion for today. That I was struggling for a while between my full-time job. I mean, I'm quite lucky that I'm able to work from home most of the time, but I do have to travel and spend time away from home overnight. Then I'm also studying for my level 6 NVQ, and then obviously I have a home life as well. And sometimes you can feel that you're seeing other people who are in a similar position in your career, and they've just become chartered IOSH, and they're like doing all this voluntary stuff, and you know, it just seems that they're achieving so much, and you start thinking, oh, maybe I need to cut out things in my life. And it was something that I wasn't prepared to do. And starting talking to more people like Louis, realised it's not something you really need to do, and it's never a one size fits all solution. So it's more of what we can do. So what I've sort of started doing is I spoke to my line manager at work, who was able to help me prioritise tasks that I had, so I could sort of refocus my time a little bit more. I spoke to my partner about how I can spend some of my personal time to study while also having time for us to do things at weekends and stuff. And it's just having those open and honest conversations for me has really helped me find that balance, I think. What about yourself, Louis?
Yes, it has been a challenge, particularly over the past 18 months. I must admit, there is quite a large amount of information being bombarded by either by these meetings, by additional social media, entertainment, etc. Everything has diverted away from what we are used to. Ultimately, we are all human. We want to socialize. We need to socialize and interact, release the good dopamine, etc. So it is essential to find this balance and prioritize, like Nicole said, look at the well-being, because there has been a lot of initiatives certainly within our organization, my organization, and your well-being is your wealth, and you're not going to get that back if you don't look after it. So that's why Nicole and I have put this together and reaching out to you guys, and I can see a lot of good responses coming through the chat. And yeah, we are very interested to have a discussion with everybody on the call to see how do you find your balance, what works and what do you think can be improved. So is there any questions or anybody that would like to share how they cope with everything at the moment, from work, life, or study perspective?
I've just seen that Josh, who's another Future Leader member, has put in a good question of how can we build time for personal development and study. That's one that I've struggled with. So last year, during the sort of height of the pandemic, I found myself going crazy with CPD and signing up for every webinar going and conference and everything. And at that point, I had information overload and felt I was listening to the same webinar over and over again. At that point, I realised doing a lot of CPD wasn't maybe the best option, and it was more about being more particular about what things I was signing up for. What was I actually going to gain from that session? Or was I doing it for the sake of having something to add on to my CPD? I think for me, trying to build more personal, how to build time for that personal development and study, I'm very fortunate that I've got a really supportive team that I work in. When I spoke to them about wanting to do my NVQ, they allowed me to take some time out to do that. They allow me to take time out for personal development during work time within reason. And I think what I also found helped was 100% focus on whatever I was doing at that time. Because what I'd been trying to do was I'd go for a walk after work to unwind, and that's good for my well-being. But I think, oh, what would be really efficient is if I listen to a safety podcast while I'm out on this walk. And I found that it wasn't efficient at all. It was less efficient than it was before. So I think if you're having me time or family time, anything like that, it has to be 100% me time, family time. If it's development time, you focus on that. If it's work, you focus on that. And I think that, for me anyway, helps clear things out. I don't know if you have any similar experiences with that, Louis.
Absolutely, having that clear distinction and boundaries. So, from my perspective, I moved away from home a few years ago when I made a transition to London. Yeah, it's been quick 5 years, and it has been highlighted, particularly isolating for me, to be here and to set that boundary with what I do at work and what I do at home, and I do enjoy some sports. So it has been extremely helpful, extremely important for me to make sure that I can find a balance. I do have to admit, no no way I've conquered or achieved it. I'm working on it continuously, because as we all know, our priorities do change very rapidly, especially now when we have to be in this what's called agile environment, and the ability to adapt has been very very challenging. And this is something that perhaps we can have a discussion around. What we expect and what we commit to has been a topic that a lot of people are asking questions about. What is that expectation and what is the commitment? So maybe we will have that as a question shortly. But is there anything from the chat, or anybody that would like to join in and say a couple of things? Nicole, is there any questions from the chat you can see coming through? Josh, yes.
Oh, here you go.
Just 1 second. So Josh, yeah, you want to go ahead?
Hi, can everyone hear me all right there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. Really good session so far, guys. And yeah, I think tacking head on what has been, I think, something at the front of everyone's mind, especially in COVID. And yeah, just having that sort of refreshing conversation about how we find a balance is so critical, I think. And yeah, I think for me, what you said about finding that sort of demarcation between the work we do during the day and how we sort of transition into the evening is critical as well. And something I found, especially at the start of the pandemic, was I'd shut my laptop and then 5 minutes later it'd be open again, and I'd be sort of trawling through emails again. So yeah, it was really just to say, obviously sort of work with you guys through the Future Leaders Group, what sort of we can do as a community to kind of support each other. And I think the link for the LinkedIn group's coming up, but yeah, it's just open a sort of discussion around that, really.
Thank you, Josh.
I think there's a lot we can do to support each other, and I think it's kind of allowing each other a bit of slack a lot of the time. That you know, myself and Lee had discussion the other day about social media and LinkedIn, and you know, LinkedIn is a great community, but sometimes when you're having a look through it, it can put a lot of pressure on when you're seeing other people achieving things. And I think it's sometimes, for me anyway, I've had to sort of accept that the journey that some people take to advance in their career isn't necessarily the journey that I'm going to take, and that's okay. And it's okay for me to find my own way and you know, manage it in my own way. And it's okay for people to manage it whatever way they do. If they want to do all this CPD stuff and listen to all these podcasts and share everything on LinkedIn, that's fine. But I don't need to feel I need to do that too.
No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Nicole. And I'm just going through some of these messages. Thank you for all of this engagement. So I'm going to go first of all, Emika. So finding a balance during COVID has been challenging, and struggling with the balance, work, family, and study, and to-do plan. Yeah, that's a great shout to have a plan. Meditation, brilliant. And when I'm free, communicating with your wife, excellent. So another suggestion, and what others are doing. So Haley has put in, made a point of putting in an hour of structured mental health time. That's brilliant. And maybe we can elaborate on that. Is this something that you do on your own, or do you do with others? Or is there a possibility of having that in a session with multiple people? It's definitely a great time to share. So PT each week, brilliant. Exercising, journal, writing feelings down, excellent. Notebook, thoughts, what's happening in the mind. Yes, that's so important to get that constant loop. Switch it off, and have it on the page and release that strain of everlasting thought, isn't it? Good, brilliant. So I'm just briefly going to show you some of these ideas for tips and anything else for anybody that might be interested. So from work perspective, as we know, this demand has shifted towards virtual meetings. So even a small change, going from a standard 1 hour 60 minutes to even 60 minutes or 30 minutes, let's reduce it to 25 or 50. So only schedule meetings that are required. Make sure that people have a clear agenda, what they want to communicate, that you don't overrun and from all of a sudden, from a half an hour meeting, there's 2 hours of listening and extending that attention span, which, by the way, I was told it's actually not even 40 minutes. That's going back to my uni days and being in a lecture, but I'm sure that's very individual for everybody as well. Only include people that are required to be present. Use recording facilities, and have an ability to play it back when you need it. It's actually very, very useful. And then, of course, big aspect of respecting people's focus time and lunch breaks. So going back to what Hayley put down, that she has a dedicated time every day to her own mental health. It's brilliant. And then there was just this image of 50 different ways to take a break. So yeah, calling a friend. When was the last time when you genuinely just called somebody, just how are you doing, you know? So talking, listening to music, going out for a walk, just doing small acts of kindness. So there's plenty of ways that we can take a break. Nicole, what would you say are your let's say top 3 ways of winding down or taking a break?
My probably top 3 would be going for a walk. I'm quite lucky that I have a lot of really good walks just outside my house. I usually sort of call family or friends just to catch up. And then probably the one that everyone does is just sit and watch Netflix or something. Not very productive, but I feel sometimes you just need that time to just not be productive. Josh, what would you like to share?
Yeah, I think some really good suggestions there, and ones I'm certainly going to take away. I think the ones around sort of meditation and structured mental health sessions are really, really good, and I think they can be lost in busy diaries. I think for me, obviously talking about sort of psychological well-being and fulfillment naturally lends itself to what we do on a sort of daily basis, which is sort of embedding safety and safety culture into our teams. And so I'm just kind of intrigued to hear from other people on this call what sort of creative ideas people have about how we can engage teams, solving that sort of psychological mental health well-being issue, if it is an issue, and then how that kind of relates to safety as a whole. So it's something we're running on our particular operational site tomorrow, is around a sort of structured stand down where we get teams doing different things on site. So ones that are usually in one area of site are out and about, or if they're usually in a building, they're out and about, or going to be doing sort of grounds maintenance things tomorrow. So it's getting people doing different things and keeping them sort of psychologically active and hopefully sort of fulfilled in that manner. So that's one of the ways we're trying to promote sort of well-being and diversity of ideas on our side. So yeah, just really sort of keen to hear from your perspective how we can be really creative, because I think that's such an important factor we've got to be.
I think it depends on the business, really. I think the whole mental health piece is quite new to a lot of businesses at the moment. I know within our organisation we've done a lot of work on it, and we've introduced a wellbeing manager into our group who supports all the businesses, and we kind of put together a sort of job advert for mental health first aiders. And as well as them doing the initial mental health first aider course, it's then getting them engaged of how do you then support that mental health first aider and keeping them engaged with it. But I think it needs to sort of be slightly bespoke to the business, that in our business it tends to be more males than females who maybe necessarily wouldn't have spoken about this sort of 5-10 years ago. And I think it is just about having open and honest conversations about sharing experiences. And I think I know when I go to our sites and I start talking about things like that, and it's sharing, like, you know, my personal experience of, you know, how I got into safety and why I'm passionate about what I do, and that sort of humanises it for people. I can't really think of any really out of the box ideas. I think a lot of them have been maybe tried and tested, or maybe I'm a bit ignorant. I'm not sure if, Louis, do you have any experience with that?
So in terms of workplace, there has been a lot of attention in terms of finding it at home. It is a bit more difficult and more challenging, I agree. I'm let's say a young professional in London, where things are constantly happening, which is great. But to find something that is really that you're really passionate about, for example, for me it's rowing, it's sports that and cycling, but it's something that we definitely need to grow, and I'm really happy to be sharing this with the future group, with the future leaders group that creates that purpose and the community feel as well. So that's how I see it. I was going to go back to there was some great points from everybody that is taking part so far. Just sharing your thoughts, and so committing to turning off all IT and locking yourself away with a book or music. Yeah, that's probably interesting. Interesting way of saying, you know, when was the last time that we actually switched off your phone? You know, it's a good start, isn't it?
The
We're
only
almost
thing with switching off IT at the moment that's becoming a little bit more difficult is with people working from home. That I'm quite fortunate that I've got this office space at home that I can close the door, but I was very conscious of when I got my equipment for working at home that I had a laptop and I have a portable monitor, that I can put that away at night if I want to, so I can still use this space. Because I think when you have work equipment lurking in the corner of your house, it's very difficult to switch off from work. So I think being able to switch off and being able to physically hide work or something, if you're having to work from home, does really help with that balance.
Yeah, I agree. Another strategy I started to practice is utilizing that time when you travel to and from work to actually wind down, instead of being accessible all the time, answering emails, phone calls, and everything else in between with entertainment and social media. It's to actually use that, whatever it is, 45, 50 minutes, just to really switch off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do recommend it if you are on a journey to and from work. Try to stagger, by the first, second, third stop, do different things. I do enjoy some Sudoku if you're into it. Definitely keep that mind ticking. Not engaging with work-related matters. It's important. So definitely. Also, the idea of reading a physical book. So, Nicole, what was your last physical book that you read?
I'm actually reading one that my neighbour let me borrow. And it was a physical book rather than a Kindle, which is quite nice.
Yeah, so we can definitely see some books being shared, which is great. What is the Just going through the discussions. Yeah, breathing exercises. Yes, absolutely. Everybody thinks that it's a simple thing, but it's very important. Nicole, do you practice any meditation or any exercise yourself?
Not as much as I probably should. I do some yoga sometimes on occasion, so I have been familiar with breathing exercises and that before. I do cycle, but that tends to be more at the weekend when I go out for a longer bike run than I can during the week. And I tend to go out for walks. I do try and go out for a walk in the morning before work, after work, and sometimes a short one at lunchtime as well, just to help break up my day a little bit, which I do think helps me kind of switch off and get that time to think between meetings and things.
Brilliant. Is there anybody else that does something, let's say, very different or very unusual? That how do you find your balance again? Is there anything you would recommend to us all? Yeah, Phil, please join in.
Afternoon, everybody. So I was a little late. I think one thing for me, what we have to, I think maybe as an industry, come together to understand, and I know me and Nicole spoke about this a while ago, that so many people in our industry are always trying to better themselves, which is a great thing. We're always watching webinars, reading books, and all that sort of stuff in work and out of work. You know, we're possibly attending branch meetings, watching webinars, listening to podcasts about safety, and always trying to better ourselves. But it also then can become a bit of a problem that we're trying to do that all day, every day, and we're not switching off from that. And I think we have to come to an understanding that that's not a bad thing. To actually say, you know what, today I'm not going to listen to any podcasts, or I'm not going to read a safety book, or I'm not going to do something that is possibly safety related, to give yourself a bit of time away from those things. Because I think, especially in our industry, we are always striving to be better, and we're always trying to watch this video or read that book, and it just becomes a bigger extension of our work, and we become people who are working 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365. And I think we have to accept that we can stop that for an evening, or even, you know, an hour or two every evening or whatever, to really switch off from what we're doing. And that, you know, we're not always trying to be in this race of developing ourselves as much as everybody else is. What we do for ourselves is our own thing, and how we develop ourselves is the way we do it, and we need to accept that and work to help ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I did find myself before overscheduling my time with, you know, webinars and trying to listen to safety podcasts and do all the stuff that on paper you're meant to do to be a really good safety professional and, you know, progress to the next level and all that. And I think as well, what we need to remember as safety professionals, our jobs have to be so flexible at times that I can't afford to schedule every minute of the day, because that's going to be when I'm going to have an incident notification come through and I've got to support with an investigation, and we need to allow that time for flexibility. And just because I have to postpone or cancel something doesn't mean that immediately, you know, I'm going to implode and I'm a failure and everything's going to come crashing down. It's okay. Things can wait, and I think it is about prioritizing your time better. And, you know, we can do the CPD and things like that, but you need to be able to find that balance between your work life, your you know, development life, and your personal life, because there's only so long that someone can sustain doing that consistent, you know, development work without having a break. That something's got to give at some point, and I think it's more about how can you find a way to sustain yourself. And there will be times, you know, if someone's got exams coming up, that for the month or so before that exams, that you are going to have to focus more time on it then, but you need to allow your that sort of holiday period after the exam, that you can switch off and have guilt-free time of 2 weeks, that it's okay to not study and be focused on webinars and podcasts. And the good thing now that with everything that went virtual online is you can watch this later on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you watch it live, if you watch it later on today, if you watch it a month later, who cares? As long as you're putting in the work, that's great. And I think we need to award ourselves for doing that extra work as safety professionals, because we do, you are right, Philip, we do a lot of extra work. Do you have any similar experience with that, Louis?
Apologies. I was just reading through some of the notes, and I'll come back to it, Nicole. But yes, very good point from Catherine. There was a last message talking about how we're all safety professionals, and some of us have well-being in our titles, but often we actually, because of trying to be helpful and trying to help everybody else, we actually forget about ourselves. And I think it's a very, very valid point, and thank you for sharing, Catherine. And I was, again, apologies about the background noise as well. I was just going to maybe share some of the coping mechanisms when I get up extremely early to do some training. And a really good thing that I found lately was to have a cold shower, and on top of just having a good and dropping the stress levels, it actually works the sustainable environmental side of things as well. So yeah, that's one of the crazy mechanisms I can share with you all today. But yeah, is there anybody else that is doing something different, or something that they would like to share with us today?
I think I've seen
So
that Adam's put in a comment about the power of pose and how posing like a superhero can help with your perception. And I think that's brilliant. Sometimes it's just something really simple that can help.
Josh, is there anything else that you are doing at your workplace that is being useful for you?
So I was trying to the perennial quote of the last year, trying to find the unmute button. No, I think yeah, the site I work at is operationally incredibly diverse. We probably have about 150 employees from my company, but on any given day, probably an additional sort of 900 contractors on top of that. So I think the key for my own personal well-being, and what I try to also highlight to a lot of our other operational managers and a lot of our frontline staff, is that sort of variety of your sort of daily business. And also, I think we've said time and time again on this call, is about being almost sort of ruthless with the time in regards to when you need a break and when you need to structure in some time to have a bit of a break, doing so, and being sort of ruthless with yourself and in conforming to that. So when you've got sort of a lunch hour blocked out, I always like to go for a little walk around our site. I think it's about 300 acres, so it takes me an hour or so to get around the perimeter sometimes. And yeah, just even on the days where I think, I've got 1,000,001 things to do in the morning, I would rather just spend that hour just sort of cracking through emails. I always try and step away and have a bit of a breather. And often, things that have been annoying me in the morning, or things that have been I know I've got to respond to quickly, which seem very, very pertinent at 11 in the morning. Once I've sort of done my hours round walk around, it sort of melts away sometimes, and it just clarifies it in my mind, and I'm a lot more structured and a lot more relaxed going into the afternoon than I was before I started doing that sort of thing. So that's, I think, the less creative side of things. And then yeah, as I said, I always try and challenge myself for our team to try and do something different. So that the idea I said yes earlier in this meeting around getting our teams doing different things on site, obviously in a safe fashion that they're trained and competent to do. But yeah, doing different things on site, I think, just refreshes their own sort of hazard awareness, their own safety awareness, and also enables them to kind of contextualize their particular role or job within a much broader operational process. So things that they see, if they're working sort of midstream on a process, if they go to the start of that process or the end of the process, they know how their actions are affected by other people, or affect other people downstream. And I think that just broadens everyone's sort of understanding. And if you get everyone talking to each other a bit more, I think we said there, if people feel more empowered to sort of talk about things. And I think that one of the comments was around the sort of mental health first aid course. I think is an absolutely fantastic course that I'm sure many of us have been on, for providing that empowerment to not only talk to colleagues if you're feeling down, but also provide that sort of intervention proactively if it's required. So I think it's a whole sort of holistic approach to things of, some of the more mundane sort of personal well-being things, and then also always trying to think outside the box to do something a bit differently.
Thank you for sharing, Josh. It's brilliant. I was just going back, maybe back to Marco. If you don't mind sharing, what was the solution for happiness in the book? What ideas did you get from the book? If you want to come on yourself, and do you want to share some, Marco?
I was just have a little bit of trouble unmuting me. Okay, so as we all know, as we all know, happiness is an expectation versus reality thing. When we set our expectations very high, we tend to not achieve them, and we tend to get frustrated. I'll tell you a personal example. I love to run. I do 10 kilometers and half marathon runs, and I have a tempo, a time that I would like to do. I'd like to run the 10 kilometers in 45 minutes. That was my goal. And I trained for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months. And at the run, that and me together with my trainer, I was aiming to achieve the goal on that run, that fateful day. And despite of all my training and all my dedication, unfortunately, I couldn't get there. And at the end of the run, there was this moment where everybody was happy to arrive at the final lane. And I was like, I knew I just had done it. And I was like very, 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 very upset about this. And despite of doing my personal record an amazing time, I was like, oh my God, I did not did the time I was willing for. And he was like, it's okay, you done a great time, it's your personal record, that's it, that isn't enough for me, I wanted the other time. But for the book and for the Soul for Happiness book, and from most podcasts with Stephen Bartlett, I guess that we can be happy despite of everything that happens in your life. He lost his son. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I cannot imagine being happy after a fatal accident happens to her. And he managed to go through it using a formula that have 6. He calls it 675. I don't know if someone read the book, but it's kind of, he's an engineer he worked in Google, and he developed the formula of 6, 7, and 5 steps. So the first 6 steps is remove the biggest illusions we have from expectations and getting to know who are you. And there are 7 blind spots that do not allow us to achieve our happiness, and there are other 5 definite truths that we need to know and to practice it and in order to achieve happiness. So there's a phrase that I've chosen from the book, and it was like, this book is not about telling you how to be happy. It's teaching you how not to be unhappy, because if you're not unhappy, you're happy. And another phrase that I've taken from the book, I'm with the book right here, is that our standard is to be happy, is not to be unhappy. Our standard is to be happy. Imagine a baby. If he isn't like with poop all over him, yes, I have a 70 days baby, a 70-day son as well. I have two sons, one 3 years old and the other one 70 days. If he's not hungry, if he's not dirty, he's happy. He's smiling all the time. So our standard is happiness, not unhappiness. So I guess this is the main things I got from the book, and I will tell you guys to watch his podcast because it's amazing. I didn't knew Stephen. I guess he's a little bit famous in UK and Europe, but I didn't know him, and I just found the podcast amazing.
That is
I
brilliant.
find it interesting.
I would definitely go and buy the book and read it myself. Thank you, Marco. I'm just conscious of time. We have set this meeting to 50 minutes. Time is flying when you're having fun. I was going to just perhaps ask Nicole any 3 main tips you would give to our audience today. Just
Yeah,
got enough cooking in the office.
I think for me, the top 3 tips for finding the balance is ask for help when you need it. And I think you'll tend to be pleasantly surprised at how willing people are to either give you hints and tips or allow you that time. The second tip would be allow flexibility in your schedule and don't overcommit yourself. I think I say to professionals, we need that flexibility in our schedules and not be too harsh on ourselves when things don't always go exactly to plan. And I think the last one is make sure you make time for yourself, because you need to look after yourself before you look after anyone else. What about you, Lee? What are your top 3 tips?
Well, I really like yours because you have shared really valid points, and I think it resonates with all of us. My one would be don't be afraid to say no. I think we're very poor at that at the moment. Review your priorities constantly. Make sure that that priority list is not just growing, but make sure it's getting updated. And finally, make sure you get your clear boundaries between your work-life balance. And yeah, that's it from me. And then finally, just a final message. Thank you very much, everybody that attended today. If you have any further questions, there is some questions that have come into the chat. We will aim to answer them and share them within a platform on LinkedIn, or if you want to get in contact with us on this email, or of course, I hope I'm speaking for both of us and all of us in the Future Leaders group team, that if you want to add us on LinkedIn and if you want to contact us individually, we'll be happy to continue the awareness and the communication. So thank you again for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.